Whether you've already made your decision or just want a little bit of reassurance, you've come to the right place because in this video, we're going to be talking through all 7 healers, what Season 1 of The War Within is going to look like for them, maybe their playstyle, to help you make your decision. Now, a few things before we start. This is all to help you make the decision. I can't, no YouTubers can make the decision for you guys. All I can do is kind of give you guys the foundation of each spec, tell you how it's going to play, what your rotation might look like, and then you can make your decision based on what you want to be experiencing throughout Season 1 of the War Within. I'm also going to try to avoid as much as I can power discussion because what's performing best in beta right now could be completely irrelevant by the time that Mythic Plus actually opens up. So I'm going to try to avoid that as much as possible. Now let's finally get into Resto Druid. Resto Druid is always seen as one of the more difficult specs to master, but one of the more easy ones to pick up and play as a new player, and it's maintaining that identity. In fact, pushing it even further. You now have fluid form, which can just increase your skill ceiling on things like cat weaving, while also just making it easier to do because you're spending less globals to do so. You also have an entire hero talent tree designed around cat weaving, where your hots and dots are going to be applying more hots and dots. You can use certain spells on enemies that have those dots or allies that have those hots to do bursting AoE damage. And then on top of that, you're just going to be increasing all of your periodic healing and damage on those targets. So if you're someone who has seen people cat weaving, or maybe you in the past have cat weaved and you enjoyed it, you now have a new toy, a whole new rotation at your disposal. It's a good time, but it's very difficult. So if you're a new player picking the spec up, be very wary because while you're in cat form, you're much more susceptible to your group taking damage that you aren't able to heal up. The more time that you spend in your druid form, the easier it is to heal because you're ready to react better. However, if you're not looking for this very high skill ceiling playstyle of cat weaving, the other playstyle of just sitting in druid stance, spam healing, spamming damage, like casting spells like Wrath and Starfire, has seen massive improvements thanks to Keeper of the Grove. This further increases your synergy with your Grove Guardians, which is excellent for both new and returning Resto Druids because the Grove Guardians do a large portion of the healing for you, and they also enhance all of the healing that you, the player, are doing. So once again, that's good for new players. They can just summon these guys, turn their brain off, get a good amount of healing out, or for returning players or experienced Resto Druids, after some time with some practice on the spec, you can really play around these Grove Guardians to enhance your own healing with Harmony of the Grove. And just like they've enhanced the dots and hots of your cat form and also your Grove Guardians, they've also turned your Swift Mend into a mini cooldown where you're just going to get a burst of haste, a bonus from your tier set. You're also allowed to have 2 charges of this, and it plays very well into reforestation. So as long as you're spamming those swift mends on cooldown or just getting good value out of that being your best shock heal, then you're going to be cycling your free tree forms while also being able to play Convoke now that it's been buffed, which is so much fun of a spell. And then you're going to be getting a lot more Grove Guardians because of all those free tree forms. The playstyle really does loop itself, so it's very intuitive to pick up and play, but also very powerful once you've gotten the hang of it and are able to master it. You still maintain your identity of the hot spec, meaning that unlike other healers where you react to damage, you have to be proactive, meaning you have to pre-apply your hots before like your tank or your party takes damage, which is a very fun shift in playstyle if you're coming from other healing specs. However, that alone has its own learning curve. Just think of it like you're always ramping for damage to come. In Raid, they still maintain their rejuve spammy playstyle, which is actually more fun than it sounds, I promise. But thanks to talents like Abundance, which has been in the game for a while, but there are a lot of other talents that are buffing your regrowths, you're now weaving in a lot more regrowths to do more spot healing. So instead of just applying hots for a whole raid fight, you're also a lot more active in your spot healing. So it's seen a lot of improvements, not just in how it performs, but also in how it plays. Piloting the spec feels a little bit different, but just enough of the old to where it's still fun and has that good druid feel. Moving on to Preservation Evoker, it's still a very similar preservation to what we saw in Dragonflight, which to a lot is a great thing, but to some is a bad thing. So it does still, I have to mention this right off the jump, it does still suffer in how its class is designed, where two of your primary spells are kind of frontals. So Temporal Anomaly being an orb that you shoot out in front of you that you want to pass through all of your allies, but also Dream Breath being a cone frontal in front of you as well. So what I'm trying to say is the devs didn't change these spells. They still operate like how they used to, but they've given evokers a lot of tools to kind of fill the gaps that these disparities calls in the playstyle. So a lot of the old returning favorite things about preservation that make it so much fun are echo. So you can apply echo, I think I'm blocking it, but you can apply echo onto an ally, and then your next healing spell or your next helpful spell will duplicate onto whoever you have that echo on. So you can spread echoes on your party and then spot heal one person. All of a sudden everyone is spot healed. Also, stasis, one of the coolest healing cooldowns in the game. You store up your next 3 helpful spells. You can do some powerful combinations like Temporal Anomaly, Verdant Embrace to spot heal everyone with all those echoes, and then a massive Dream Breath after that, and then store those 3 spells with stasis, and then within the next 30 seconds press this again to unleash them again. Super cool stuff. It still has all the same synergy in its base trees. However, a lot of the juice, a lot of the spice is coming in their hero talent trees. Starting off with Flame Shaper Evoker, other than the frontal problems of this class, Verdant Embrace is noob bait. So if you're just picking up this class, beware that this does fly you to its target's location. So if your teammate is standing in swirlies and they get hit by one, you fly to them to spot heal them, then you're putting yourself in danger too. So you can still echo them and then Verdant Embrace yourself. That way you stay put and spot heal them. However, if you don't even want to take that risk or just want to do that giant spot heal in one global, Flame Shaper Evoker has Engulf, which is a massive shock heal that only gets stronger if you have your hots and dots on top of them. And trust me, with this class, you can just spray out hots. On top of that, a big bonus to pressing Engulf is that you're going to be consuming your Dream Breaths on that target. You're also going to be spreading them and increasing the duration, but 4 seconds worth of that Dream Breath's hot, you're going to be popping to make it just detonate and do a ton of AoE healing on top of the spot heal from Engulf. So that's just another tool that you have on your utility belt to deal with situations that before you just didn't have. You only had limited resources like Verdant Embrace. But one cool thing with Engulf is you can actually pair it with Stasis. You can pair it with Temporal Anomaly for AoE echoes. You can do some pretty disgusting stuff to turn this spot heal, the shock heal, into a more powerful, just explosive spell. And not to mention, in a pinch, you can just use this for big smacks of damage. But moving over to Chrono Warden, this also is a disgusting hero talent tree. So yes, you don't have Engulf. However, your Living Flame is going to be kind of like your next go-to spot heal spell. So normally if you Living Flame spam, it's going to do a nice juicy spot heal on them, but it's pretty slow and clunky. It's still slow and clunky, don't get me wrong, but it will pack more of a punch thanks to Chrono Flame. It's going to come and just do even more healing depending on how much healing you've done to them in the past few seconds. But what's like filthy, disgusting about this hero talent tree is that it turns your Tip the Scales, the spell that makes your next empowered spell instant and fully charged up, it turns that into an even burstier window, not like a cooldown. It already was a powerful cooldown, but now it's a cooldown plus a bursty window right after it. So after you press Tip the Scales and enhance one of your spells, you're gaining a ton of haste. You're going to be zooming around. Your cooldowns are going to recover 30% faster. I mean, it's disgusting how rampy you can be with this. So for Mythic Plus, you can take either of the hero talent trees. I've seen them both be successful. Same for Raid. They both pack a punch and are very powerful in their own ways. But your Raid playstyle is going to look a lot like it did in the past, just utilizing these new tools. So I saw some Raid people play Chrono Warden. They would do the same ramp where you're trying to stasis your Temporal Anomaly and spread a bunch of echoes, and you're trying to life bind find yourself with all of the people with that echo on them. So then your next healing spell or the next healing that you do will just replicate a bunch of it onto everyone that you're life bound with. So I've seen some powerful things with the Chrono Warden playstyle. There's still, I saw a lot of people doing Emerald Communion next to just channel yourself healing and just spam a massive heal on everyone over this channel. But with the Flame Shaper playstyle, you now have more tools, more toys, I should say, because I've seen people capitalize with big engulfs. I've also seen people capitalize with the fact that your Dream Breath does 20% more healing over time. They just capitalize with Dream Breath max or made stronger with your Verdant Embrace. So you now have just like a lot more options other than the same ramp over and over, depending on the damage profile. So it is seeing a shift in play, but really it's a lot of the old stuff, a lot of the good stuff from Dragonflight. This spec probably has the largest gap in skill floor to skill ceiling. So when you first pick it up and play, some of the spells are just intuitive. Dream Breath, you breathe in front of you, people who get hit by it are going to be healed. But echoes are pretty, they take some time to master and to figure out how exactly to get most use out of them. And then also all of the stasis combinations that you can assemble, especially now that Engulf is in the game, has gone up. So that is another area that it might take a bit to get used to, but the learning experience on this spec is just such an enjoyable time. Moving on to Mistweaver Monk, they are taking everything, every possible thing that you could come up with about why maybe you didn't enjoy the spec when you tried it, and almost like completely removing them. They've made so many strides in the War Within to just make this an easier spec to pick up and play, while also just making it a more enjoyable experience. The first major change that they did is they actually removed Essence Font just from the game. So this spell had a lot of problems in like how it worked. It was either like really strong or really useless. However, just removing that removes a lot of the complexity from learning this spec and adds it into their mastery, meaning it's just like you just have to learn how to play around one thing instead of two things. So that is a huge thumbs up for Mistweavers. Also, another big reason why a lot of people did not enjoy Mistweaver in Dragonflight is because you spin in Crane Kick almost all the time in Mythic Plus, like on AoE packs. However, you still have that option, but adding a lot of the power into your mastery and adding more power into Ancient Teachings adds more power into your other rotations. So now, if you're spinning Crane Kicking, you're just missing out on your single target rotation, which has seen a lot of boosts. Another reason why the spec was very difficult to pick up and play for new Mistweavers is because you play Chi-Ji in a Mythic Plus environment, since you're punching and kicking, getting a lot of value out of that, but you play Yu'lon in a raid environment. Let me scooch up a bit. You play Yu'lon in a raid environment. Yes, it's looking like the most optimal, most healing, highest HPS raid playstyle is Yu'lon. However, they have made so many strides in closing the gap. It might not be closed shut, but it's getting closer and closer to where if you're a new player, you pick up and play, learn how to play Mistweaver in Mythic Plus, and then want to drop ship that same playstyle into a raid environment, you're going to be doing more competitive throughput than you used to be doing. It still probably doesn't have that same ceiling as Yu'lon, but it's getting a lot closer. It really is. So in Raid, like I said, you're most likely going to be playing around Yu'lon ramping once every minute, just doing massive HPS, tons of spot healing. You feel very impactful based on your choices of what you're doing. You're going to be controlling your mana bar with things like Mana Tea, which is something that no other healer can really do, honestly. But let's go ahead and talk about the hero towns. I haven't even mentioned these, but both of them are super sick, like very cool. So Conduit of the Celestials, you have a new button, and this so far has been the hero talent tree of choice in both Raid and Mythic Plus, thanks to not only because of how powerful this button is, it's basically like a mini cooldown. If you don't have any of your other cooldowns ready, like your Yulon, your Chi-Ji, or your Revival or Shaylun's Gift even, you can press this and it pulses out damage and healing. However, if you do have these healing spells available and you don't need a healing cooldown right now, you can use this just for big damage too. So it's very cool. However, a lot of the strength also lies in a bunch of these passive talents that come in the hero talent tree, which kind of just proc in the background if you're not even thinking about them. Like you can just be doing your rotation and accidentally stumble upon some of these spells, like by casting Tiger Palm in Mythic Plus or casting Vivify in Mythic Plus, you're going to proc Zwin, and then casting an Enveloping Mist during your Chi-Ji window or an Enveloping Mist in your like raid build. You're just going to be procking Nitzao. So you can accidentally stumble upon all of these hero talents. However, a lot of the skill expression, if you're looking to just master this spec, will come from mastering all of these passive talents. And that has been a lot of fun on beta. They have also done a great job of adding a lot of the oomph back into Rising Sun Kick. So one of the biggest problems coming from Shadowlands into Dragonflight is a lot of that power was stripped from Rising Sun Kick and put into Blackout Kick, like cleaving Blackout Kicks and stuff. But thanks to talents like August Dynasty, thanks to talents like Crane Style, your Rising Sun Kicks do just even more than they already did, which is a ton. So it feels very impactful in a lot of different builds. But let's move on to Master of Harmony. Now, this hero talent tree, like I said, it's not really performing as well as the other one, but it is so much fun to mess around with and to pilot. So it takes one of your old spells and it just buffs them as bonus damage. So my favorite way to play this is with Chi Burst, because your Chi Burst just shoots a line through everyone, does big damage, does a pretty solid amount of healing in like a raid environment. But then it turns your Thunder Focus Tea into like a mini burst window, just like how Evokers have their Tip the Scales. It's already a powerful cooldown, but then it adds more effects on top of that. This is pretty similar because you're just going to do a big burst of AoE healing if you take something like Purified Spirit after you press your Thunder Focus Tea. You're just getting a lot of bonus healing, a lot of bonus damage from things like Manifestation, and also Overwhelming Force, which shoots a line whenever you kick something or punch something. So it's just really fun to play around with. So you do have a more powerful option that is also very fun thanks to Celestial Conduit. But you also just, if you want to take a load off and just kick your feet up and literally kick your feet up, then you can swap to Master of Harmony and have a great time. Moving on to Holy Paladin, this is probably the one that you've heard the most about because they have seen a big return in one of their like old identities. As you probably know, throughout Dragonflight, a lot of the power from Holy Shock was put into a hot. So instead of doing all of its healing right up front, it would put a thing called Glimmer on them. There was a bunch of synergy in their talent tree around Glimmers, but the Glimmer whole aspect has been removed, thus restoring all of the impact, all of that shock healing juiciness into Holy Shock. So if you choose to play Holy Paladin, it's kind of a unique experience playing a shock healer because you just basically hover your mouse over someone's health bar, you press a button and they instantly just get topped up, or at least they instantly get juiced up a bit. And there are so many talents that play around Holy Shock, being able to Holy Shock more often, like Glorious Dawn. Your Holy Shock just has a 12% chance to just not go on cooldown. You can also reduce the cooldown of your Holy Shock by 2 seconds. So you're going to be cycling a ton of Holy Shock, spot healing, shock healing left and right. It's a really unique experience, like I said, because you're topping up one person at a time, whereas other healers might have spells or other ways to just top up a bunch of health bars or move them all at once. There's also been a ton of power restored into your spenders. So if you played Holy Paladin throughout Dragonflight, no matter how powerful the spec was, their spenders, what you're building up your holy power for, did not feel that impactful, admittedly. However, on the beta, that you pack a punch. You Holy Shock someone, their health bar jumps. And then if you spin on Word of Glory, their health bar just rockets up. Also, Light of Dawn, I haven't really seen much play of this spell, even in Raid. People have been choosing to go Word of Glory. Some people choose to go Light of Dawn and still put out good healing. So, but the point is your spenders pack a punch, and so does your Holy Shock. So that alone is a pretty intuitive rotation. Just Holy Shock, maybe something like a Crusader Strike to reduce the cooldown of your 2 Holy Shock charges, and then using a spender, and then kind of rinsing and repeating there. just doing different ways like build up your holy power and then spend it. It's just how the spec is supposed to be played, designed to be played. It's just returning to those roots. Also, as I mentioned, they removed Glimmer, and a part of that was Daybreak. They had a cooldown throughout Dragonflight. I think it was one of their old returning cooldowns called Daybreak. Very cool button because it would snap all of your Glimmers, doing an instant bump heal on anyone that had that Glimmer on them. But also, it would turn your next Holy Shocks into this rapid fire machine gun where it would hit 3 times instead of once. So you could just jump one person's health bar all the way up with one Holy Shock press. They're still keeping that, but it's in the form of Rising Sunlight. So they've removed Daybreak, they've removed everything that has to do with Glimmer, and they've added its power and its strength elsewhere and its funness elsewhere. So Rising Sunlight, you now get that Holy Shock reverb effect after your Avenging Wrath, like your major cooldown, or your Divine Toll, one of your other pretty solid cooldowns that you can get down to a 45-second cooldown. But not everything about this spec is changing. They are keeping a lot of their strengths that they had in the War Within, and part of that is their number of different tools that you have for any given scenario. So like I said, they don't have Daybreak now anymore, but you still have a ton of different cooldowns. You have Aura Mastery if you know you're about to take a big hit or your group's about to take a big hit, and you can reduce all the damage that way. You also have Divine Toll, which does a massive amount of healing, but also not only does this do AoE healing, but you also get that extra reverbing Holy Shock for nice juicy spot healing on top of that. You still have Tears Deliverance for a nice healing window after you cast it. You still have Avenging Wrath Might. You still have Avenging Wrath Crusader, which did see a nice little, a small buff coming into the War Within, making it a bit more competitive. And if you choose to go it, you have Beacon of Virtue, which you can get a lot more healing done during its little 8-second window, thanks to your Holy Shocks being more bursty now, as opposed to just getting more of its effect over time. So you still have just a Swiss Army knife of tools at your disposal. However, thanks to your 2 hero talent trees, you're gaining another tool depending on which one you go. So Herald of the Sun, I like to call it the Jedi build or the laser beam build. It's very cool because you basically have extra strength added onto your wings. So yes, you're not gaining another cooldown, but you're juicing up one that already exists. This can do a lot of damage or a lot of AoE healing depending on your positioning and how well you're able to set it up. It does have a bit of a skill ceiling, but it's not too high. It's nothing that you won't master within the first like week or so of playing the spec. But also this hero talent tree does transform your Word of Glory into a more powerful version called Eternal Flame. So you're not gaining a cooldown, you're gaining more power elsewhere and on top of one of your existing cooldowns. So in that aspect, it is a little easier to play because you're not having to learn the functionality of a whole new button. But thanks to talents like Awakening, you can get free procs of your wing, which do put you into Sun's Avatar. So in one way, you kind of are gaining a new cooldown in Sun's Avatar on top of your Awakening. But then you have the other hero talent tree, Lightsmith, which kind of does give you a new button, a new like function that you have. Another tool on your belt in Holy Armaments. It cycles between a shield and a sword, and the shield, you just give it to an ally, and every time they do damage, it has a chance to proc bonus damage that's given to you, and then you also can hold that sword too whenever you give it to them. Or you can give them the shield every other use. The shield is just 15% of your health, but it also rolls on top of that, so it can just grow the shield if they don't take damage, or it can just keep refilling that shield a bit every time they do take damage. So it's just another insane tool that you have in your toolkit. And on top of that, it does also buff your Avenging Wrath, Avenging Crusader, just like the other hero talent tree does by giving you that weapon whenever you proc your wings. So if you're looking for like a whack-a-mole style healer, this is an excellent one. This is a melee healer, so you do have to watch out for that, just like with Mistweaver. But it is such a good time just shock healing people left and right in both raid and mythic plus environments, because raid leaders really enjoy having a shock healer in their raid because you're just going to be saving lives left and right. You do also still have Tower of Radiance if you want to cast a bunch of healing spells around to get healing and holy power generation that way. But like I said, there are a lot of different ways that you can buff your Crusader Strike or get value from your Judgment and Crusader Strike to just cycle those for holy power spenders. And on top of that, your Holy Shocks, like I said earlier, you're going to be casting a lot more often, so you can just generate your Holy Power from those means. But there's a lot of variability in builds for Holy Paladin, and almost any build that I've seen has been doing pretty well. Moving on to Priest, we'll start with Disc Priest. A lot of Disc Priest is remaining intact. So if you're someone who is a returning player who has played Disc Priest in the past, it plays very similar to how it has throughout Dragonflight, even throughout Shadowlands. Even a lot of people are comparing this to old Kyrian Shadowlands Disc Priest, but it maintains its identity of applying atonements to your allies and then damaging your enemies to heal into your atonements. Your healing will scale off of how well you're able to do damage. So if you're not someone who looks to optimize your healing damage, this might not be the best healer for you. But if you're looking for a very rewarding experience, this is it, because the skill ceiling on the spec is sky high, because you're always setting up your next ramp. You still play around summoning your Shadow Fiend or your Mindbender to enter into Shadow Covenant, which just buffs all of your shadow damage for the next few seconds. And then you're trying to line up your other damage buttons by not using them once they come off cooldown. That way you can have them ready during your Shadow Covenant to get the most bursty Shadow Covenant window available. So you're doing things like Mind Blasting to make them take even more damage thanks to Schism. You're trying to save up your Harsh Discipline, stronger, more hitting penances to get bigger, burstier windows during your Shadow Covenant. So it is always ramping, especially in Raid. You're always trying to plan out your next ramp. You don't want to use all of your resources as they come available to you, unlike a lot of other healers. That way you're ready for like a ramp that you have to do in like 20 seconds or so. But in Mythic Plus, Rapture has seen a small change for those of you returning players. It just buffs your next 3 power word shields instead of giving you a window of being able to spam your power word shields. So it allows you to get use over a longer period of time, but also it just makes them juicier, makes them much more impactful. I myself, as someone who's not a very good Disc Priest player, have felt like this spell is even more impactful because I feel like I have more control over how to use it. Also worth mentioning is that a lot of people have been down on Disc Priest. They almost always are during beta periods because they scale very well throughout a tier, because people just gain more information about how fights work so they can set up their ramps to be able to perform a bit better against them. But also, people being down on a spec like Disc Priest is actually very good for future proofing. If you decide to main Disc Priest, you have a higher likelihood of getting a buff, which is a pretty good upside. But anyways, let's talk about their hero talent trees. So Void Weaver is kind of your go-to in both forms of content from what I've seen. The other one, Oracle, is pretty strong, but pretty clunky, like very clunky. And you're already a pretty clunky spec in how you're always lining up cooldowns. So you can't really afford more clunkiness than going Oracle. But Void Weaver just takes what you do, kind of spells it out for you, like explains it like I'm 5, and makes it more powerful. So like I said, you're wanting to pop Shadow Covenant or pop your Mindbender, go into Shadow Covenant, and then press a certain sequence of spells. You want to Mind Blast, and then you want to Penance, and you want to Smite Spam. This hero talent tree is all about incentivizing that exact rotation and making it more intuitive, because when you Mind Blast, not only are you going to be applying Schism, but you're also going to be creating an Entropic Rift. And then each time your Penance does damage, you're going to be increasing the power of that Entropic Rift. And then every time you cast Smite, you're going to be extending the duration of that Entropic Rift. So it all just makes sense, makes it make more sense in how you do your rotation. Now, we'll talk about Oracle a bit, but this is probably, of all the healer hero talent trees, probably the most likely one to see a change in the near future, just because of how much this one spell does. It has 4 different effects. Yeah, you only see 3 of them right here, but once you've gone through those first 3, you unlock the 4th one, which is just all of the first 3 combined. But you can reduce the cooldown of your next 3 spells by 7 seconds, which as a rampy healer, you pop your Mindbender, you press Premonition of Insight, and then you press your Mind Blast, you press your Penance, and then you cast something like Halo. Now all of a sudden your Mind Blast, your Penance, and your Halo just have a lesser cooldown, so you can just do it all again quicker. You also can put a massive shield on someone, which is very good for Disc Priest since your atonement will be healing everyone evenly. If you have another tool that just can spot safety someone up, it's just a good tool to have in their kit because it's something that they don't really have a lot of. Also, speaking on that, the talent Miraculous Recovery juices up one of their main tools that they have that does that. If one of your allies' health falls below 35% health, you can spot heal them and it heals for a ton. And this talent only increases that threshold to make them even more safe at a higher health percent. So this talent tree does bring a lot of powerful tools, but like I said, Void Weaver just enhances everything about the spec that you're already doing. Now, moving on to Holy Priest. Holy Priest is very similar. Oracle kind of has all the same problems and same strengths for this spec that it does for Disc Priest. However, the fact that Insight gets a little bit less value on Holy Priest, since you already have great ways to reduce the cooldowns of your spells, your rotational spells that you would otherwise want to take 7 seconds off of, it does kind of give you a bit of diminishing returns there. Also, putting a massive shield on someone for a spec that kind of specializes in spot healing, it kind of is just adding on to a strength they already have. However, distributing all of your overhealing onto targets and just making them cleave heal on everyone else is very, very powerful. A lot more powerful for Holy Priests than it is for Disc Priest. So Oracle, like I said, it does still have a lot of strengths, but it's very clunky. It's hard to line up these cooldowns to where you're getting the best use and the best moment for that use. However, that can be a very fun point of skill expression, a very fun point that you as the player can enjoy mastering. It risks being a bit frustrating, never having the right effect at the right time. As for the actual builds and playstyles that you can go, a lot of it is similar to what you had in Dragonflight, but thanks to a couple buffs and a couple of different weird wordings on your hero talent tree, you do have a lot more options available to you. So they've buffed a lot of like the flash heal synergies. So you can go like a flash heal alternating build with like Pontifex and Lightweaver and see some pretty good success from there. And you're still going to be getting a lot of cooldown reduction thanks to your serendipity. Or you can go like a Prayer of Healing AoE healing build, especially in Raid, getting use out of the free renews that you get from revitalizing prayers. And there's some talent here, yes, Preemptive Care, that will extend all those renews. So you're just getting a lot of just free value from a playstyle like that. That's doing AoE healing. So depending on what your raid group needs, you can adapt to that situation, that playstyle. And both of these, from what I've seen on logs, both of these kind of playstyles, this AoE heal spammy playstyle that they did back in like season 2, I think, versus the spot healy build that they did back in Shadowlands, both are performing very well in raid. However, apart from that slight variation in how you want to build, one thing that remains constant is the power of your Holy Word spells. Being able to have 2 charges of Sanctifying Serenity gives you a bonus tool at any given moment. It plays very well with Premonition too, don't get me wrong, but it's very powerful thanks to all the synergies you have with your Holy Word spells. Like, once again, Pontifex, or making a rotation around like Epiphany, casting Prayer of Mending often, using your Holy Words to try to reset, like cash in, get those free resets on Prayer of Mending, and then using something like Answered Prayers to get free procs of your biggest cooldown. So you have a lot of variations of how you can play, and all of them are looking very powerful. Speaking of powerful, though, the one thing that I just have to mention is the hero talent tree Archon. Archon does what we've said already before for a couple different specs in this video, where you're taking a spell that exists in the game, whether it be already strong or kind of lackluster, and they beef it up. And this is probably the best example of that. Your Halo is going to cast 3 times outward from you, and it's going to return back to you each time. So all in all, it's going to hit everything 6 times. This is very important because not only is that just a ton of AoE healing, AoE damage, but it's also going to be beefing up your healing to allies that are hit by your Halo. So you can just do massive halo ramps. It itself is kind of like a cooldown now, so it just huge power in raid, but also very importantly in Mythic Plus and in raid, but very powerful in Mythic Plus is manifested power. Whenever you're casting those halos, you're getting free casts of Surge of Light, which make your next flash heal do more healing, be instant casts. So you're doing a ton of AoE healing, AoE damage, and enhancing your single target healing. So everything that you want from your healer, whether you want to do more damage, whether you want to do more AoE healing or single target healing, this hero talent tree awards you and gives you a very powerful and fun cooldown that already existed in the game but is now just like so juiced up. And once again, as a priest, you are desirable in groups for your fortify buff, your PI. I didn't even mention that for disc priest, but your PI, and also for raid's symbol of hope. We don't really know how valuable this is going to be in raid come the war within, but it will be valuable. That's for sure. Just giving cooldown off of all of your groups, defensives, giving mana back to all of your healers. It's just really good, really solid. On top of your other suite of very powerful cooldowns like Divine Hymn, either Apotheosis and Mythic Plus, or Power Word or Holy Word Salvation, you just have a lot of great stuff returning from Dragonflight or from the past, while also a lot of new stuff that is juicing up all of the. It just all plays together really well. But let's close things off with Resto Shaman, and their tier set brings a lot of power into tidal waves, which is something that you're just getting almost at all times because it just incentivizes you to weave in Riptide every now and then to buff your next 2 healing spells. So that alone is just a very powerful tier set because you can stack it up for rampy moments, but you're also just getting value throughout a fight by doing what you're already doing. Resto Shaman also is seen as like a utility Swiss Army knife in both Raid and Mythic Plus because of all the tools that they have at their disposal. You have so many powerful healing cooldowns for like a Raid environment and also for a Mythic Plus environment, because the more like mini or semi cooldowns that you have, the more tools you'll have available per pack on average. So you just always have a tool available. You have Ascendance for massive throughput. You have Ancestral Guidance for massive throughput. You have Healing Tide Totem for massive throughput. You have Spirit Link Totem for, once again, you guessed it, massive throughput thanks to Spouting Spirits, but also survivability and safety because it gives damage mitigation and it can save people in a pinch. It's just such a versatile healing cooldown. So you as the player will feel like you were just a Swiss Army knife saving people left and right, depending on whatever situation you have a button to press that can help them. As far as rotational spells go, you're once again going to be just casting Riptide almost on cooldown. You don't want to sit at max charges of this so that you can have this hot ticking. Same with Healing Rain if you're going Farseer Shaman. You want to keep this ticking on. So you're going to have 2 hots kind of spilling into health bars, keeping them topped up or close to topped up. So your spot healing that you actually have to do is a lot lessened. Same with Earth Shield. You can have this on yourself and the tank thanks to Elemental Orbit, and that's just going to be spilling healing back into them. You will need to refresh this on your tank as often as possible. Don't let this fall off of your tank because it also gives them damage mitigation, which will make them like you as the healer. They just have perma tank mitigation or damage mitigation. You also can have Healing Stream Totem helping with that just consistent healing as well. You have your Riptides spilling into people, you have Healing Rain, Earth Shield spilling into people, and then also Healing Stream Totem. Or you can take like the more advanced play style and swap your Healing Stream Totem for Cloudburst Totem for kind of like a mini cooldown. I like to think of this as it literally is a cooldown. You store up all of your healing that you do while your Cloudburst Totem's out, and you can press it or let it expire to just burst a portion of that onto everyone. So it's a variable play style depending on how you want to play that talent alone. And then on top of that, the rest of your rotation is very intuitive. If you need spot healing, you cast one of your spot heal spells, either Riptide if you have a charge available, or Healing Surge or Healing Wave, depending on the situation, how much time you have to react, to do a nice juicy spot heal. If you need AoE healing, you can line up some of your timers like Tidebringer and High Tide and get a massive chain heal, or just cast a chain heal. If you need to do spot damage, you just do Lightning Bolt or cast Lava Burst if you have any charges of that available, or if you need AoE damage, you just cast Chain Lightning. So it's very intuitive. You do chains if you need AoE, you do your single target spells if you need single target. So the rotation just makes sense. And adding on to that, the hero talent trees that they're gaining play into that a ton. Farseer especially kind of just incentivizes you to do what you're already doing. Whether you're playing Unleash Life, which is another like mini cooldown, you can use this to just spawn a free ancestor, or you can play Undulation, which just says whenever you cast 3 of your healing waves, healing surges, every third one's going to do more healing, and it's going to spawn an ancestor for half as much time. This hero talent tree will just be spawning ancestors left and right. What's really cool about that is they're going to be kind of like mimicking your spells. If you're doing a healing spell, they'll cast a healing spell, just helping you with the healing. But if everyone's safe and you're casting damage spells, they're going to be like, okay, cool, let's help with the damage, doing more damage there. You're also turning your 1 minute nature swiftness into a 30-second nature swiftness, which is very good, not just for mana usage, but is also just so powerful. I mean, being able to cast 2 chain heals back to back, like you cast a chain heal right once it finishes, you nature swiftness, chain heal again, getting those rapid fire Tidebringers is so powerful, and doing that every 30 seconds is just insane. On top of that, it's going to call an ancestor, and that healing spell will do 10% more healing. So very sick hero talent tree. It just plays off of what you're already doing while enhancing it by just enhancing your spells, casting them again at reduced effect, and then also just giving you a shorter cooldown on one of your primary rotational buttons. And then moving over to Totemic Shaman, this incentivizes slightly less of your single target healing spells than your Farseer Shaman does. But it incentivizes your AoE healing spells by a ton. So already right off the bat, Surging Totem is basically just a stronger healing rain. However, you have to be more careful about its placement. It does last longer and it's kind of locked in unless you change its location with something like Projection. But it's just a stronger healing rain, stronger AoE healing, basically. On top of that, whenever you cast one of your healing totems, or healer totems, I should say, because like Mana Tide's in there as well, you're also going to cast a free chain heal in that moment. So you drop 2 of your totems, that's 2 chain heals right off the bat. And then on top of that, your chain heals are going to be zipping to your totems after they're finished, dashing between everyone in your party, and then cast a bit more. So you're just casting a lot more chain heals to utilize things like living totems and totemic rebound, but then also getting a lot more value out of it thanks to things like totemic rebound. On top of that, if you chose, depending on whichever one you chose to go, your cloudburst totem can store up even more healing, being even more of a cooldown itself. Or if you're just going healing stream totem to help you with the passive healing, you're going to be healing 1 additional target at 50% effectiveness. This healing, both of these add up. This hero talent tree just enhances what you're already doing while kind of changing the how certain spells like your totems and your chain heal behave. So whether you're a new player just trying to pick up the class, you're going to get a lot of free healing spells cast regardless of whichever hero talent tree you play. Or if you're someone who has more experience as the class, or given enough time, when you get there, you're going to be able to utilize all of these free healing spells to just do insane ramps to store up massive cloudburst totems. Just there's a lot of skill expression, which I just now realized I am blocking. There's a lot of skill expression, but also a very low skill floor thanks to the ease of the rotation in this spec of Resto Shaman. Well guys, there you have it. That's kind of like my opinion, or at least how I predict each class is going to play out for at least the first season. Maybe some builds they're going, some of their rotation, what you as the player can expect if you decide to main this spec. But obviously this is not all inclusive. I might have skimmed over some pretty key talents, or just mentioned something that they might end up not even playing thanks to like rebalancing or something. But guys, I just wanted to make this video to kind of help you make that decision. Also, I'm going to watch it back and make that decision myself because I'm still pretty undecided All the healers look like a great time. Don't let anything that I say make you make a decision. Maybe I didn't talk about one class enough and harped on one too much. Don't let that persuade you. Just use this information, do a little testing yourself, maybe in the first few weeks or during pre-patch, and hopefully this helps you. Guys, my name is Ninja7. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much to the patrons of this channel, because I would not be here making videos for you guys if it weren't for them. So make sure and check out that link down in the description below if you want to see if there's a tier that's right for you. Also, while you're down there, like this video if you liked it, if it helped you, and make sure and comment what you are maining, or if something helped you make a decision in this video or that I missed. Leave all that in the comments below so other people can benefit from that. But guys, once again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for all the support lately. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, good luck picking your main.